might assume that one of the fundamental pieces of the horror movie is the hero-villain showdown. And yet, in some of even the grisliest of horrors, this moment never comes. In fact, in some movies, the hero and villain don't even know each other are born. So with that in mind, I'm Ellie for What Culture, here with 10 horror movie heroes and villains that didn't know each other existed. Number 10. The Father and the Jacket, Deerskin. Master of the absurd, Quentin Dupieux has been furnishing us with some of the most enjoyable surreal cinema for the past 2 decades. Despite this, he still flies under most people's radars, and films such as Deerskin don't get the attention they deserve. Deerskin lays out the tale of George, a man consumed by his desire for a deer hide jacket, succumbing to its retro look and killer style. Thing is, the jacket itself is the villain of the piece, supernaturally luring George in and using him as a puppet to enact its own ends and send him on a people and jacket slaying rampage. While on said rampage, George and his jacket are watched by a silent boy whose gaze eventually irritates them so much they snap and pelt him with a brick. Bad move, because that boy has a father, and that father has a gun. In a shocking third act twist, George is sniped from a hillside by the father, succumbing instantly to a head wound. As a result, the jacket swiftly passes on to its next host, never having been aware of the father, and the father never having been aware of any sentient jacket. Number 9. Macy, Chip, Schrader, Sarah and Sam, Trick or Treat. Trick or Treat is the film often referred to as the best horror nobody has ever heard of, and yet somehow everyone has seen it. An anthology of stories, the movie's through line is Sam, a little pumpkin-headed guy in a Hessian bag and an orange jumpsuit who is literally the spirit of Halloween. Dedicated to nothing more than keeping the holiday traditions alive, Sam stalks the suburbs for the entirety of the film, providing the sinister connective element between stories. While he seems benign at first, the little rascal is revealed to be a real stickler for the rules of Halloween and will go out of his way to violently ensure they're followed. For the Halloween bus school massacre segment, Sam haunts the background as 4 teenage trick-or-treaters prank another girl with a story of a bus crash in a quarry. They dress up as the children who went missing after the crash, but the prank backfires when the spirits of the real kids come back and introduce them to their doom. While it's implied that Sam's Halloween magic is the cause of these nasties, there is no acknowledgement that he even knows the teens exist, never mind that they know him. In fact, it is unclear whether Sam is aware of many of the protagonists and other antagonists of the film, until his own self-titled segment where he takes direct revenge against a grumpy old Halloween hater. Number 8. Cole and Vincent, The Sixth Sense. M. Night Shyamalan has been lambasted for the majority of the past 2 decades for his over-reliance on revelatory twists as key plot devices. And yet, back when he was a young, hungry director who nobody really knew, it was the twists that made the movies. Enter The Sixth Sense, the director's 3rd feature in which a young boy is partnered with a child psychologist to try and uncover the truth about the youngster's supposed ability to commune with the dead. The unambiguously named boy in question is Cole Sear. And, spoiler alert, he provides the impetus for psychologist Dr. Malcolm Crowe to return from his own death in spirit form and complete his unfinished business, much to the Doctor's eventual surprise. The villain of the piece is Vincent Gray, the former patient who slew Malcolm before his time, and for Malcolm, his narrative journey is very much an attempt to reconcile this and help Cole in a way he couldn't help Vincent. However, while the spirit of Vincent Gray haunts the film, figuratively, he never reappears in person and thus never meets Cole. And given the pair seem to have the same preternatural abilities, this really could have benefited them both. Number 7. Marie and the Killer, Switchblade Romance. Alexandra Archer's ultra-violent slasher Switchblade Romance, aka Haute Tension, aka High Tension, has built up a keen notoriety in the 2 decades since its initial release, coming to be recognised as part of the new French extremity movement, exhibiting some of the worst excesses that movement has to offer. Alex takes a trip to the French countryside to visit her family and brings along her best bud from uni, Marie. But not long after they have settled in for their first night away, a psychotic truck driver descends upon the homestead and hunts Alex's family to their deaths. Stowing away in the truck, Marie is able to tag along while the killer kidnaps Alex, intent on alerting the police and hopefully giving the villain a good thrashing in the process. But all isn't quite what it seems, and the final act opens a door on a strange psychological reality, producing one of the all-time dumbest twists to boot. Marie is the killer. This whole time, she has been switching back and forth between her normal self and a violent alter ego. There is never any suggestion, however, that either Marie or this killer alter ego are aware of this fact. Thus, in a truly head-scratching turn of events, neither knows the other exists inside of them. Number 6. Paxton Rodriguez and Sasha Rasimov, Hostel. 2023 heralded a welcome return to horror for director Eli Roth, who adapted his grindhouse trailer Thanksgiving into a feature film. But the film that originally made Roth's name was Hostel, the no-holds-barred torture-a-thon that brought every backpacker's worst nightmare to the silver screen and helped put splatter on the map. In this 2005 picture, young travelers stay for a few nights in a hostel that turns into a lifetime in hell when they're kidnapped by the self-styled elite hunting club and sold to the highest bidder. Once captured, the victims, including the movie's hero, Paxton Rodriguez, are subjected to the worst tortures imaginable, all for the enjoyment of a select few with the money to make their grotesque dreams come true. The big bad of the Hostel series, Sasha Rasimov, works from the shadows and runs the club at a distance. As such, he never knows the captives, and the captives are never aware of him. This means that although Paxton is the hero of the first Hostel movie, engineering a daring escape and taking out a few bad guys in the process, he not only doesn't come face to face with his subjugator, but never even knows he exists. Of course, this all changes in the sequel, but that's another matter altogether. Number 5. Kurt, Jwes, Holden, and the director, The Cabin in the Woods. Pumped out by Joss Whedon and Drew Goddard in 3 Days Flat, The Cabin in the Woods represents a vast knowledge of the horror canon and turns all of its best setups, surprises, and monsters into meta-plot elements. In the film, 5 university friends take a trip to a remote cabin where they encounter redneck zombies and all manner of other horrors. But this ain't your average supernatural throwdown because the mounting horrors are being manufactured and controlled by the mysterious facility, who are determined on accruing a serious body count in pursuit of a higher purpose. The big hulking hero of the gang, Kurt, meets his end against the invisible force field keeping the group and all the oogly booglies the facility unleashes contained within preset boundaries. Jwes and Holden follow suit, and as a result they never learn the truth of their situation and never meet the lady in charge, Sigourney Weaver's director. The director doesn't have time to micromanage and only steps out of the shadows when absolutely necessary in order to finish the sacrifices and abate the giant underground gods, the Ancient Ones. Of course, most of the heroes of this piece are not aware of the Ancient Ones either, who may be the real villains of Cabin in the Woods. Take your pick. Everyone's a loser. Number 4. Marcus and Latenia, Irreversible. Beginning to end, Irreversible is a sickening headache of a film, but that doesn't mean it isn't good. Gaspar Noé's most shocking feature to date plays in reverse order, from a brutal slaying at a gay BDSM sex club all the way back to a lovely afternoon in the park, challenging viewer preconceptions of violence and hinging on an extended central scene of a vicious sexual assault. There are no true heroes in Irreversible, but the closest we have is Marcus, a pretty ordinary Frenchman who is drawn into a world of cruelty while attempting to avenge his girlfriend. On the other side of the coin is Latenia, a foul beast of a pimp who thrives on violence and savagery. Although Marcus spends most of his screen time in the film, if taken in chronological order, hunting Latenia, he never actually knows who he is. So much so, even when they came face to face, Marcus is none the wiser. Equally, Latenia remains blissfully unaware that Marcus is looking for him, or why, believing he has gotten away with his most heinous of crimes. And in the end, he does. What we are to make of this is for us and only us to decide, just like Noé intended. Number 3. Gemma, Tom, and the Alien Overlords, Vivarium. Lorcan Finnegan's sci-fi horror Vivarium sees young couple Tom and Gemma go to view a home in a new housing development before getting lost in the suburbs and stuck there for the rest of their lives. And yes, there's some serious subtext driving this one. As it happens, there is a mysterious race of aliens controlling the whole project, trapping unsuspecting humans in their new builds and making them raise their own, as in the aliens, offspring to maturity. Given the aliens controlling the whole program never actually show up, it should come as no surprise that Gemma and Tom never find out who or what these things are, shrouded as the whole enterprise is in mystery. But worse than this, the alien overlords don't even know the couple existed. No, instead the cycle perpetuates. The alien child grows up and gets a job, Tom and Gemma die, and a whole new crop of soon-to-be parents are lured to their doom. Phew, thank God this one isn't real. Number 2. Tess and Frank, Barbarian. Taking a leaf out of Psycho's book, Zach Cregger's Barbarian sets up one plot only to dismantle it in the second act. The film begins with the story of Tess, who is forced to spend an eerie night with a stranger after they double book an Airbnb. But then she is abducted by a creature living under the house and not seen for the next chunk of the movie. When we pick up with Tess again, she is the surrogate child of the monstrous mother, a woman in whom generations of inbreeding have created a simple mind and mutated form. Although Mother is frightening and violent, the real villain of Barbarian is Frank, who spent the better part of the 1980s abducting women, sexually assaulting them, and keeping them captive in tunnels beneath the house where he procreated with his own offspring. Although he hasn't been seen in years, Frank is still alive and living, bedbound under the house. While Tess never discovers him during her time being kept in the tunnels, another of Mother's abductees, AJ, does and puts an end to the old man before he can do any more harm. C'est la vie. Number 1. Billy and the Brain, Gremlins 2, The New Batch. Gremlins 2, The New Batch brings Gizmo to the big city where his old pal Billy now resides. Once introduced to the high-tech building Billy works in, however, the little mogwai gets himself into a few spots of bother that spawn another batch of his evil counterparts. This time around, there's a chemistry lab involved, and once the Gremlins have changed into their green, scaly selves, they take another leap up the evolutionary chain by experimenting with potions that give them a whole host of new abilities. The previous film's antagonist, Stripe, grows spider legs and spends his time torturing and pursuing Gizmo, hell-bent on nothing more than a bit of good old-fashioned sadism. This leaves the floor open for the Brain, the newly minted mastermind of the new batch of Gremlins' big new schemes, to take charge. He helps mutate and empower his companions while planning a larger life for them out and about in New York City, multiplying endlessly while menacing the human race into submission. However, while Billy ultimately thwarts the Brain's plans and terminates the entire species in one fell swoop, at no point during the film do the pair meet, nor do either have any idea who is leading the opposing sides. Now, if we could just get Gremlins 3 underway, that would be grand.